Hi, and welcome to the It's Just Business podcast with myself, Richard Price. In this podcast, I interview some of the best business minds and entrepreneurs, diving deep into their business journey to get those valuable business lessons they have learned for entrepreneurs like you to succeed on your business journey. So listen up, listen in, let's begin. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the It's Just Business podcast. Today, I am joined by Rafael Rozenson. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, well done.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. So Rafael is the founder of Vieve, which is a protein water, and he's come here to share his story about Vieve and tell us a bit more. So thank you for joining. And could you tell us a bit more about you and Vieve?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you my spiel as I call it, which I've done many times. I've got it memorized in the back of my hand. But yeah, basically, so a bit of background on myself. So I've kind of worked in sort of FMCG consumer goods for a good 15 years. So previous to starting my company, I worked for a lot of big FMCGs, so people like P&G, Disney, Bacardi, JSK, Danone, Mars, Monster Energy. Did like Mars. I did like marketing, sales, category strategy, a little bit of everything. And basically, I've been taking sports supplements for a really long time. So I was taking them for about 20 years, and never really liked the taste or the experience. I always hated the experience of kind of like mixing powders and shakes. I'm also lactose intolerant, so I had a lot of problems taking the products. But I always kind of like saw the benefits. So I always used to take them. And a couple of years ago, I was trying to bulk up and horribly failing, but I was taking a ridiculous amount of protein. So I was like, cans of tuna, chicken breast, salads religiously, like the whole lot. It got to the point where I was just like, I just felt like I was going to vomit from all the protein. And at the time, I happened to be working at Evian, so the water company. And it just happened to one day, I just happened to look at a bottle of water, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if you could get protein and it was sort of refreshing and hydrating and it tasted nice. So yeah, that's kind of where the idea for this product came from, and spent a couple of years basically sort of developing the formula, finding a manufacturer, getting financing, doing all the regular things that you kind of do when you're starting up. And then
Right.
we reached about 3 years ago now. So last year would have been our third full year, basically.
Great. I mean, it's when I saw drink Vive and protein in the bottle, I thought, wow, because I've also had many failed attempts of bulking, and
Yes,
buying these sort of
isn't it?
protein powders,
Yeah,
drinking,
yeah.
having all the bars and all the protein powders, and yeah, it
Gross,
just
gross.
is
Yeah,
it's not great. Yeah. So yeah, this is the product that I should probably buy tomorrow, actually.
yeah, yeah.
So you had a background, or you have a background in sort of consumer products.
Yep.
So this definitely sort of seems to have been born out of your experience, right? You saw the opportunity. You have a lot of experience in this area, and so therefore Vive was born. How did you kind of where did you see it going, and how did you kind of leverage your previous experience to help you launch this?
Well, yeah, it was a couple of things. I mean, like at the time when I started, I was also just I kind of admit it. I was having a bit of a midlife crisis. I was kind of getting really tired of working for a lot of really big FMCGs and big companies, and I just really wanted to do something different. And I started going to kind of a lot of food and drink exhibitions and trade shows, and I was just really fascinated just how much like innovation was happening from all these startups. And I started meeting a lot of founders and found a lot of people just really passionate um,
Mm,
about their products. But often when I spoke to people, they kind of had a bit of a gap in terms of like they love their product and they were obviously very passionate about the product, but they might not necessarily understand how to kind of commercialize it and bring it to market, and how to talk to retailers, and how to manage a supply chain and
mm,
P&L and things like that. So I thought, you know what, yeah, I'm kind of not really happy with what I'm doing at the moment. I've kind of got this skill, which, as much as I kind of want to go away from it, it's kind of what I've done and what I'm good at. And I do really
Mm,
love brands,
mm,
and I love products, and I love innovation in food and drink. And so all of that kind of really just came together very naturally. So I think I was quite lucky having the background that I've had. It's definitely given me a lot of an advantage versus other sort of startup entrepreneurs.
mm.
Because a lot of the basics I already kind of knew, and I've been doing for a good like 10, 15 years.
How was the leap of faith? Did you was you bubbling it up on the side, cooking it, and then, was there like a specific launch day? How did that transition work for you?
We launched when I was kind of doing some work, and then I kind of finished my a contract I was doing, and it just kind of happened to marry up, and we got to the point where I was kind of happy with the product, and we had a manufacturer, and we had money, so kind of everything sort of lined up, and you just kind of had to do it. I said, you know what, it was kind of, I had no reason not to do it, and you just had to sort of really take that big leap of faith that people often say. And it was either, go and find another role, another company, another contract, do a bit more consulting work, whatever, and that might have tied me up for another years. But by that point, probably the market might have moved on. There might have been other brands. It would
Mm,
have been a bit too late. Maybe protein wasn't really going to be a thing anymore. So it was really like kind of you had to do it now, or it just wasn't really going to happen.
mm, mm. Absolutely, absolutely. So I guess it's been 3 years. What was your sort of go-to-market strategy? Was it let's get on the shelves as much in as much shops as possible, or was it, let's do it online? How's that sort of been for you? And what?
Yeah, so I guess the initial strategy was, yeah, we're going to get this in all the supermarkets, and it's going to be in every single retailer, and it's going to be front of store everywhere. And yeah, I completely failed at that. It didn't happen. Um, uh, I guess for me, coming from like a big FMCG background, I was kind of a little bit arrogant and a little bit um when you're working for a P&G and you're working for a Bacardi and you go talk to a retailer, like they're going to list your product. They don't usually say no. So it was a completely different experience actually just trying to get buyers to just give you a meeting or even just respond to an email. So if I'm going to be honest, the retail part of it, I really failed at. I
Mm,
really sucked at. We didn't do a great job of that. There are many different reasons. There were other brands out there. It was an emerging category. It was tough to get traction at the beginning. Anytime when you're a brand, but drinks is especially competitive. But while I was kind of working on that, we still were building up the online side. So we got the website set up. We started selling on Amazon. That started to do really, really well. We started to get traction online. We started to move up the rankings on Amazon. We became like number one on Amazon, number one on Google. We were Amazon's choice. And suddenly, like our sales kind of started building and building and building month on month,
mm,
which is the great
mm,
thing about online versus physical retail. You kind of like, you do really well, you go up the rankings, you sell more, you do better, you go up the rankings, you sell more. Like it's kind of
mm,
this sort of funnel.
mm,
And that part of the business started to really take off. And then the other part of the business that started to take off was the export business. So we started
mm.
getting a lot of interest from a lot of different countries. And now, 3 years later, I can say we've kind of lost some distribution in different markets because of COVID and different political reasons and things like that. But now we're available in about 12 markets across Europe, Middle East, and Asia.
Nice.
So we got a lot of interest from a lot of different countries. So that part of the business developed really well. So I would say I kind of had like a vision of what I wanted to do. That didn't happen, but we still managed to build the business anyhow. And we've grown. Last year we grew about 95% year on year. Every year we've grown about 50, 60%. Um,
Wow,
so
good strong numbers.
yeah, so it's done well, even though it hasn't been specifically the way that I kind of envisioned or thought it would happen.
Sure. But I think that's part and parcel of being an entrepreneur and going through business. Many times you have this idea, and it's about validating, it's about testing, and then it's about sort of pivoting. All these kind of fancy words, but
Yeah, and that's really the unique thing about online. And online gives you really that environment in a very low cost sort of way that you can actually test out your product and get the feedback. And
Mm,
thankfully, the feedback was quite positive on the product from the beginning. So we got great reviews, really good word of mouth. We still don't spend a lot of marketing versus our competitors, and most of our business just comes from other people referring our product.
and so, did you leverage the Amazon fulfillment, like fulfilled by Amazon, or was
Yeah.
you fulfilling it yourself?
Yeah, we have a warehouse. We have a third-party warehouse that does our fulfillment from our website. But we were on FBA, and then now we're on the vendor program with Amazon,
Okay.
which is basically where Amazon becomes one of our customers, and we sell to them as opposed to them fulfilling our product.
Super. Is that worked out better for you?
Yes, it has. It hasn't worked well for a lot of people, but for us, it's worked really well. The product just does really, really well on Amazon. It's kind of maybe it's because our category is a bit quite specialized in terms of like protein waters, so people
Mm,
really kind of naturally go online to buy it. But
mm,
again, it's that whole thing of kind of like we sell more, we move up the ranking, we sell even more, we move up the ranking. It's done
mm.
really well for us.
Would you say that's the largest part of your business at this point
Yeah,
in time?
yeah, it's about
Okay.
50% is Amazon.
Right.
And that's Amazon in the UK, but also Amazon all over Europe.
Mm,
So we're in about 5 different markets across Europe.
mm,
Unfortunately, with Brexit, that part of the business is a bit of a question mark at the moment.
mm.
But yeah, that's a whole other story.
Hopefully Boris will do us right, and
Yes, well,
make Britain great again.
yes. After 4 or 5 years, yes, maybe.
um, so interesting, and I've heard about fulfillment by Amazon, and it being a good business model for some niches and quite saturated in many. Um, but also the fact that there's a lot of replica. There's a lot of fraudulent goods on there that people that come from
Yeah. Hmm.
untrusted sources. So at least I hope and imagine that with Vieve, you don't have that problem of there being other third
No,
parties.
people generally have like, so if you buy an exercise mat and you're importing your exercise mat from China, who happens to be a manufacturer supplying about 50 other vendors, like because we are a brand and we manufacture our product in the UK, and it would be very tricky for somebody to just kind of like rip off our brand. I think where people have that kind of a problem, it's more around kind of commodity products that are easily replicated, that are generally being imported from overseas, China, wherever you have you, and they think they're getting like a really unique product, but actually somebody's just churning out a factory and getting really good cost efficiencies that allows them to get that to a lot of different people.
Yeah,
So I think the important lesson there is really build up your brand. It's really important to have a good brand, not just on Amazon, but generally in the marketplace. In food and drink, you can't trademark, you can't patent a recipe. So
ah.
for anyone, our intellectual capital is really, really our brand and the trust that has with consumers.
So that's interesting. So you can trademark a recipe in the US, but you can't do it in Europe.
You can't. I don't know all the legalities of it in the US, but in
Sure.
Europe you can patent the technology. So for example, if we had a really innovative way of making protein waters with a new machine that we just developed, then that, yeah. But
Right. Right.
as a recipe, if you launch the world's best tasting cake,
Mm,
somebody can come along and just replicate. I don't know why I chose
mm.
cakes, but
Is it maybe your birthday soon or something?
I'm hungry maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, could you tell us a bit more about launching food and beverage in the food and beverage sort of segment? Like, what
Yeah.
challenges did you come up to and had to deal with? Because I imagine it's a good that you need to get some, I think the food agency involved with or something like that. You need to get tested. So, maybe you could just tell us a bit of how you navigated around that to launch Vieve and make it a
Yeah,
consumable product.
the biggest challenge when you're launching a food and drink brand is finding a manufacturer. And that's finding a manufacturer that will initially start off with you when you have smaller volumes, but will also allow you to scale up, and finding a way to do that profitably. Because when your volumes are very small, you're going to be making very, very low money. So you
Mm,
need to kind of have that glide path. So I would say finding a manufacturer, and that manufacturer should have the appropriate accreditation. So
mm,
appropriate food safety, appropriate kind of licenses. They should have a certain certification. So for example, our factory is like a BRC, which is the best accreditation that you can get, basically. Um,
mm.
so I would say that's kind of like the biggest challenge. And yeah, and having the important quality controls in place so that the product is consistently good, it's consistently good quality.
Mm.
Working with reputable suppliers. So yeah, it's quite challenging when you start off because of that, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I can imagine. And so I guess it's so on the back of the manufacturer having these certifications, anything that comes out of that factory is sellable without any sort of other certification or anything that you need as a brand.
Yes, generally we'll do all kinds of different testing on the product. So we'll do like testing to make sure it's safe to drink, or what have you. We do
Mm.
nutritional testing to make sure that what we say on the label is correct in terms of the nutritionals that we're giving to consumers.
Right.
But yes, if they have a certain accreditation, then that means that that factory follows certain safety procedures. That means your product is basically safe for the end consumer. And obviously, they're
Sure.
licensed by the local health councils. The local health councils will come and inspect them at various different points. So yeah, I think in food and drink, and I think that's one of the reasons why our product is quite sought out in places like Asia and the Middle East, is because we have a very reputable, very good reputation around food health and safety standards.
So how did that sort of come about, and how's that sort of changed the business? You know, this global takeover of Vive. You know, especially in the Middle East and Asia. How have you found that experience so far, and what's it done for your business?
Yeah, I mean it's been great. I mean, it's just funny because like we're in more stores in outside the UK. Like our physical retail presence in the UK is basically zero. Like once gyms and all that have kind of closed down this past year. So
Mm,
in places like Qatar, we're in like 150, 200 stores, but in the UK we're not, like so it's been interesting. I mean, COVID's made it quite challenging at the moment with a lot of our
mm,
Middle East customers. For example, we launched in Korea just before the kind of the crisis hit. So unfortunately, that wasn't great timing for a launch. We launched in Lebanon just before kind of the political crisis there, kind of like last year. So it's I never thought like I would have to think about geopolitical forces when it comes to like, my business and things like that. But it's been really, really, really eye-opening in that regards. And it's
mm.
really great when you have a right distributor on board and you work with a good partner in the market, that can support the brand in the right way. It's really good. It feels like a really great collaborative relationship because you both kind of want to win, really. I think, yeah, because our product is quite unique. We are lucky that we just get that interest from other markets.
How many could you give us a one of your sort of maybe metrics that you look at? I mean, I guess it's how many bottles are sold, right? So do you know how many bottles you've sold so far?
We've done about 500,000 so far since we launched.
Nice,
Yeah, yeah. So we should be crossing that threshold about this month, I think.
brilliant. Well, congratulations. And sort of what price is the bottle? You know, an average,
So we retail like, yeah, it depends. You buy it online in a six pack, so it's about like £2 roughly per
right?
bottle. You buy a multi-pack, so it's a little bit less.
Yeah, yeah,
So we don't really sell individual bottles. We do on Ocado, but generally people buy like the multi-packs.
sure. Because if you're going to buy protein sort of pack, then you're going to buy a big pack of £20, etc. So it makes
Yeah.
sense that it's in a bulk multi-pack. Um, okay, nice. So could you just like maybe expand a bit more on how you cultivate community, or marketing? You have a good brand. You have a good sense of brand.
Mm.
How do you sort of make tell your story and sort of make position your brand to make sure that you're in the right box?
Yeah, our focus as a brand is just a really great tasting alternative to protein drinks and shakes for people who don't like them. If I was kind of just like do a summary, so from a marketing point of view, again, we're a small brand, so we don't have the big massive budgets that our other competitors have, in the space, people like Grenade and My Protein and all that. So a lot of our marketing, again, kind of comes from word of mouth. So
Mm.
we have a referral program where generally people kind of like get a referral code and they share that. So that's a big chunk of our sales come from that. And then that just kind of one person refers it, another person refers it. The other one is social media. So we do work with kind of like influencers, and people who kind of advocate the brand and get the word out. We do quite a bit of social media marketing as well. We focus a lot on our social channels. But that would be probably it. I mean, yeah, we don't really have massive budget, but in terms of kind of what works, we find like digital, like social media sort of really works well for us.
Mm.
Um, um, but we'll see. We did test out for the first time last year. We did our first TV campaign. Um,
Okay.
that was quite interesting. So we might test out this year some more kind of like above the line mass awareness kind of like campaigns.
What made you want to go TV campaign? I guess it's quite hard to measure the impact of such a thing. Whereas with for something like social media marketing, you could if you're pretty good at it, you can understand that you've paid X amount for a lead or a sale. You can track it. But are you just trying to build more awareness?
No, we got a pretty good deal from Sky.
Oh, right. Okay.
They basically gave us like free media. Like, yeah, we had to pay for the
Oh,
ad.
fantastic.
So we're like, yeah, okay, well, we'll try this. And yeah, I think it did well. And would we want to test it out again? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I mean, that was kind of why.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was interesting. I mean, we created the ad and we kind of used the ad on social media and other things, so it did have leverage in other ways other than just the TV spot.
You spoke earlier about when you was launching, you managed to get the financing. Have you financed this yourself? Did you raise funds? How's that been for you?
Yeah, so it's been a kind of a combination of things. So in the beginning, I put some money into it myself, and then we also had a Virgin startup loan.
Oh,
I always recommend anybody who's starting up a business. The government has a startup loans program, and you can get like up to 25K, and you repay it over 5 years at a fairly low interest rate. So I always recommend people do that. So we did that, and then we had one fundraising round in not last year, but the year before. So we had a small group of investors that came on board, and then we're doing another round now, which is a fairly significant round for us, and we'll hopefully close that out in the next couple of weeks. And that's going to really kind of help us to kind of step change our growth for next year and beyond, basically. So it's been kind of a
nice.
year of everything myself: loans, startup loans, equity financing.
And so the for equity financing, have you had to sell out to sort of private investors, that family and friends, or?
No, they've been all angel investors with in the beginning. In this round, it might be different because we're raising quite a bit of money, so we might
Mm,
have it might be more of a private equity kind of a deal.
mm,
But we haven't closed that out yet.
sure, sure. Well, good luck with that. Um, so, assuming that all things going well, you get this big wad of cash. What's the plans for 2021? What's your plans to grow amidst the sort of trials and tribulations of COVID?
Yeah, well, for us, to be honest, COVID wasn't really that bad from a business point of view. Brexit is much more of an impact. So about
Mm.
20% of our business goes going to Europe. So we haven't been able to get product through the border yet. So I have not been able to get one single thing into the EU. We've had some orders that have been 2.5 months trying to get them processed through the border. At the moment, our product's has a lot of issues around it in terms of it's a protein, so it's of an animal origin, so a lot of complications with that. So my biggest fear is actually around Brexit. I think with COVID, God willing, we'll have a vaccine and people will kind of gyms will open up and people will be out there wanting to really, enjoy life and get back into fitness and things like that. So we did well during the lockdown. I think hopefully people will still be purchasing our product through that. But the big plans for us is, so we want to become a kind of a holistic sports nutrition product company. So we're moving away from just the drinks. We're going to get into powders, and we're going to get into bars as well. So drinks is actually the smallest segment of sports nutrition. The other segments,
Mm.
like 4 or 5. Powders is like 10 times the size of drinks. So
Right.
we've got some innovative products that we're coming up in that. We're going to focus on just continuing to expand out internationally. So we've been accepted into a big accelerator program in the US that's backed by the Molson Coors company. Um,
Nice.
so we're hoping to do a test market launch in the US, and the category in the US is just massive compared to the UK. So in the States, if you get one town right, it's worth more than the entire of the UK, basically.
I know the scale's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're doing that. And then, yeah, just trying to survive. Really, it's gonna be tough. It's been tough last year. It's gonna be tough this year. Um,
Indeed.
but yeah, and then hopefully, somewhere along the way, hopefully some retailer in the UK kind of takes a chance with us, and maybe we do get that actual big retail listing. Who knows? But yeah, it's kind of I'm not really a believer in kind of like having a very firm plan. Everything's kind of
Mm.
always a bit up in the air for me, and I'm always like coming up with ideas, and that's kind of the fun of being in a startup. When I work for big companies, everything was like, we've got a 5-year plan. We know what we're doing every single month for the next 5 years, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow, to be honest. I'm like, I could wake up and just do some crazy, wacky idea. I was like, I saw this thing on Twitter with like Weetabix and the Heinz beans. So I'm like, oh, maybe
Right.
we should do like a baked beans protein water just to cash in. I don't know. So I don't know. I'm always like just kind of keeping things very fluid and very very
Yeah.
easy.
So you're being nimble and agile. Yeah, as you should be, right? I guess this last year especially has brought plans to its feet, or to its knees, should I say? And people have had to sort of
Yeah.
switch and change it up, and that's the new normal, I guess, is with this uncertainty. So
Yeah. We're gonna, you can have a plan, but then the external environment just kind of really changes around you, and you have to kind of change things up. So yeah, exactly that. We're gonna stay agile, basically.
how big is the team of Vive? Is it just yourself, or how?
Yeah, it's just me at the moment. Um, Again, if we do get some of this fundraising through, we may hire people. We may not. We shall see. It's very tough finding a team. It's very tough finding other people, and especially within the dynamic now of COVID. You can't really do interviews and you can't meet people, so it's very hard to
Yeah.
kind of like integrate somebody. So we might just continue. We work with a lot of different agencies and things like that, and consultants and all
Okay.
that. So we might just kind of follow that model.
So do you outsource the web development, the social media marketing, or do you do a bit of that yourself?
Social media, we have an agency that just came on board. I used to do some of it, most of it myself.
Mm.
We've had different like consultants and agencies work on it. I've got somebody doing now. We have a third party warehouse fulfillment, so I'm not packing
Mm.
boxes and all that. Um, we have a factory, obviously. A lot of the digital stuff I kind of managed myself. I've sort of learned a lot
Mm.
about that over the past couple of years, so that's
Mm.
take that on board. But yeah, there's always different projects that come in, and I try to get some help here and there.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the thing when you're, when you're an entrepreneur, you got to play to your strengths, but also you don't want to commit to having big overhead and wages too soon, and especially you want to make sure that you have the right person in the right seat.
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
So you spoke earlier about using influencer marketing. I
Mhm.
think how has that been for you? Because I normally hear mixed messages of the success of it. Has it worked
Yeah.
quite well? You know,
Oh, so we don't do paid influencer outreach. So we don't pay people to promote our product. So we'll generally send them product, and we try to find people who are the right fit. So we won't necessarily send it to everybody, but we have certain metrics that we look at. So it's a bit tricky. We have like an advocacy program. So basically, where we can sort of track the sales from different influencers that we work with via code. Um, to be honest, I was kind of managing that. Now that we've got an agency on board, we'll probably do a lot more with that. But that worked really well. I mean, we had like one girl who has like a very loyal following, and she's got us like a couple of £1,000 worth of sales just from one person. So if
mm,
we have a
mm,
whole army of people like that, I think it would be really great. So I think for people who want to use it, you have to be very careful and specific. You have to have an objective behind it. You have to find a way to make it measurable. So for us, we give them a discount code, so we know when somebody um, um, buys because of them, we know. So
mm,
for us, it's kind of measurable. It can be complex to manage, so that's the only challenge. But I think you just kind of need to be focused and to find a way to kind of measure the results that you get from it, as opposed to just doing it and sending product to everybody, which is kind of
mm.
at the beginning was sort of what I did.
Yeah, no, I've heard sort of not going for the big influence, but micro influencers now. It seems to
Yeah,
be the thing, because there's more an intimacy in the following as opposed to these big sort of, hundreds of millions or hundreds of thousands of followers.
yeah. I mean, big influencers you have to have a budget for, so that's the
Yeah.
problem. Like, I wouldn't recommend for a small brand. I wouldn't recommend paying somebody for a post, because you probably eat up your whole marketing budget with one post. And to really
Mm.
get effective paid influencer outreach, you need to really have a big budget and have a lot. Because you know how Instagram is, right? We go through Instagram, we're like going. It's like we're just flipping through content, right? How
Yeah.
often do you actually stop, engage? So for you to actually do that as a consumer, you need to be seeing that message, like any communication, right? A lot of times.
Mm.
So you have
Mm.
to really, really pay a lot of people a lot of money to promote the
Mm.
product consistently. So that's why for a small brand, you won't have the budget to do that. But if you work with a lot of micro influencers, it can work for you.
I think, yeah, as we said, I've seen mixed messages with it being sort of a black hole, and the effectiveness of it. Just it's very important that you get the right person with the right audience and
Yeah,
also the right engagement. Um,
yeah, yeah,
so, Rafael, just sort of wrapping up here, to our audience, what sort of advice would you give any entrepreneur similar to you? Maybe 3 years ago, you was in your corporate world, you've left the corporate shackles, and now you're a free man.
yeah.
Um, you've had highs and lows. What advice would you give any sort of entrepreneur that's just starting out or on the similar journey?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, I'm kidding. Listen, if you do it, like, do it because you generally have a passion for it. I see a lot of people getting into it because they want to do it for the money, because they want to be the next Facebook or whatever. Like, do it, but be very calculated in terms of how you do it, because it's very, very, very hard. The first couple of years are emotionally, mentally, financially are going to be so difficult, and all the expectations that you have are probably not gonna materialize. So I always say to people, when they say, like, when they're working on the business plans, I say to them, like, when people ask me for advice, is that look at your forecast, look at how much you spend, and double it. So
Mm,
imagine you're
mm,
selling half as much as what you think, and you're spending twice as much more, which always
mm,
happens. Would you
mm.
still do it? And does it really make sense?
Mm,
And those are the kind of questions you really, really need to ask. So, be really passionate about it, be really dedicated about it. Don't do it for the money, and then be smart about it, right? Because
mm,
it's very, very hard. And the other thing I would say is, have the right support network around you, whether that be family or friends, or I don't have a co-founder, but I think life would have been a lot easier if I found sort of a like-minded person to kind of go into business with, that I could kind of bounce ideas. Also, investors generally tend to invest in teams.
mm.
So yeah, those would be kind of like, for me, sort of the key things that people have to really think about.
Yeah, yeah, agree. It's not an easy path, but we all want to do it, and I think just the fact that you're building your own thing makes it exciting, and it's incredibly, you're passionate and you're building your own sort of your destiny.
It's not easy, but yeah, yeah,
Hopefully, Coca-Cola will just come through in about 5 years' time, buy you out millions of dollars, and then you
yeah.
can relax on the beach.
Well, I'm just happy I can, like, piss after like 3 years, I can start paying myself a regular salary and, actually. So, if that comes, it's nice, but hopefully I don't have to go back to my old day job. Not that it was that bad, you know.
I, I believe in you. You got this.
Awesome, thank you.
um, Rafael, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really, thank you for your time and sharing your story on the show.
Yeah, sure.
Where can people find more about you and Vieve?
Yeah. So check us out on our website, drink-vive.co.uk. Our social media is at drinkvive, and Vive is spelled V as in Victor, i.e. V as in victory.
Hey, everybody, it's Richard here. Just a final note from me to say thank you for listening to the show. If you haven't told your friends, please do share it now. If you haven't hit subscribe, please do that now. If you haven't followed us on Instagram, go on there, follow us now. Um, I really enjoy my chat with Rafael and his solopreneur journey. It took him 3 years until he could actually pay himself. So I think it's one thing to remember if you're ever starting out a business, don't expect to pay yourself in the first 2 to 3 years, but also expect to invest in your business for the first 2 to 3 years. So make sure you have enough kitty to keep you going. And that's it. Thank you for listening again. Until next time, keep pushing.